It's in 6th page or something.
Oh, you're referring to material?
No, you want me to show the material? It's in, I didn't.
No, which
Okay.
one you're talking about, the sample script or the material?
Whatever you sent it, like
I
last.
sent the file to you, the basics file. I sent it to you all, and I
We'll,
sent the presentation as well. Which one you're referring to now?
1 minute, Madhu Trainer, Hive material. Thursday you sent it some documents.
Yeah. If you find any greater than less than symbol, maybe I'm referring to the structure of it, not the syntax.
In the
Could be like
syntax
this.
only, in the syntax, it's like in 11th place. In syntax only, if you are writing table query, like Hive, select name, deduction from employees. That is the SQL first you wrote.
Right.
In the coming SQL, like Hive, select a dot ymd, like that, and then from when you are writing like from, it's like arrow or something. You have to write like that in stepwise. Where also you have arrows or like that.
Oh, if you find something, please put that in the chat. I'm little not aware what you're referring to. I can clarify that. Put that in the chat thing, that syntax, if you find it.
Okay, I just write a syntax over there.
Hello, Raj. We'll continue. So today, actually, I planned of you actually start working on this, the discussions we had on the Hive. No, why don't you start working on this, the file I've sent it to you all. Let us have this directory structure in the HDFS first. I think you already have this file, employee comma separate file, I think. The one I sent you in the mail. Or else you can even copy from this structure, create a new employee CSV, create the folder structure in the HDFS, then come back to open another Unix prompt, get into the Hive, and then start creating like this. Can we do the exercise now?
Okay.
Raj and Sharada, let us do the exercise now.
Yes, no problem. I'm just typing the things. I didn't get the arrow. Oh, in the type, arrow is not there. Indicator is not there. Okay.
Yeah, for the interest, I'll send it to RK as well. RK,
yeah, I'm not getting the symbol there in the keyboard.
Okay.
Yeah, Madhu, tell me.
No issues, Sharada. Whenever you find that thing, send it to me in the mail. I can respond to that. I don't think that is a real thing. If I have mentioned that thing, mostly that's like referring to some structure rather than the actual coding.
If not, I can write a regular SQL. So just normal thing. So you can
Yeah, RK, do you have any virtual machine like the one I'm showing it here?
Right now I don't have, like recently I just format my system, so I don't have VMware.
Then. Yeah, I'll help you in setting up these things. So soon after the class, we'll spend some time. I'll spend some time.
Okay. Sure. No problem.
So for this class, please just you can observe it what is going on now.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. Okay. So Raj, are you there? Are you on mute? Okay. Okay. So basically, I would like to get you speed with this Hive thing, because this is very fundamental concepts. You must know the difference between the internal table and external table in the Hive, and this is one thing people get confused when they're writing advanced Hive concepts. So you all have to be sure about what is the fundamental difference between the Hive, internal and external tables. Okay, so if not now, you can practice it later, but this file you have to practice it. first you have to create a file with the sample script, and then create the HDFS paths, and then open the Hive shell, create the first external table, and then they create the internal table. The only difference you find with the external internal is that in the external table you mention the path location for the table. In the internal table you don't mention the location here. So how do you get the data into the internal table? There is a load command. With that you dump the data into the internal table. So how does Hive manages the internal and external tables? So yesterday we have seen it. In the external table, Hive doesn't take care of managing the data. It's your responsibility to have the files at this location. In the internal table, you can dump data from your local PC, local Unix shell into the Hive using this command. So when the Hive receives this command, it takes all the data from this local path and then maintains in its structure called warehousing. Yesterday we've seen this one, right? Warehousing. So this is a pretty important concept if you would like to explore the Hive further. But let us look at the other. So that's not the
getting the screen actually.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm not getting mute upon joining setting discounted.
Let me stop the sharing and reshare it again.
Meeting information personal.
But Madhu, I can see clearly.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
I'm not getting any screen.
Okay, let me. Hora, all of have joined, I think. Okay. Okay. Let me stop my sharing and then redo it again. Yep. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yeah, I can see that presentation, the Apache Hive slide.
Yeah. Yeah, Rajiv. Yesterday we had class. I think that's what we announced it earlier, right? I think I thought you're on a long weekend.
Yeah,
so,
I was outside yesterday.
Okay. So yesterday the discussion was around the core concepts in the Hive. This is the one I discussed yesterday. Fundamentally, in Hive there is a concept called. Let us spend a few more minutes. Just I think for you, Sharada and Raj, it could be repetitive, but since Rajiv is there, so let us spend a little time in the concept one more time. So, okay, she will come back. Sharada will come back. So in the Hive world, the important concept is that the activity what we perform as a user would be around this Hive client all the time. This is called Hive shell or Hive CLI. Hive client or Hive CLI, the first three letters in this Hive CLI. So this is where our concern is that. But underneath the Hive CLI, they are much more involved in this. And unlike the traditional database systems, where let us say what you do in traditional database systems, you create a table and then you start dumping data into it, either through insert or bulk import or export. In so many ways you can dump into it, but you have no clue on how the data being organized by the RDBMS system. Say it's Oracle or MySQL Server like that.
Yeah.
Whereas in Hive, the fundamental difference is that Hive really doesn't care about the proprietary way of storing data. Everything is HDFS only. You remember the discussion we had. Hive is abstraction on top of the core system, MapReduce in HDFS. So Hive is not trying to pretend to have its own data management. it simply gives the responsibility to the HDFS. So how does Hive can able to manage this responsibility, manage this handshake? This is in this manner. So we write queries against the Hive CLI, and even we create tables, we drop tables, we create databases, everything we do against the CLI. So what will happen is that there is a component called Hive Metastore server that is transparent to us. We can't see that. This Metastore server runs as a daemon inside your cluster, in Hadoop cluster. So whatever activity you do, that will be sent to the Metastore server. So the schemas of the tables, the schemas of the databases, the structure of your repositories, be it the database or tables or their indexes, whatever, all the metadata information, the data dictionary part will be stored in a Metastore. And the data, the exact data what you're going to dump into the table would be stored in the HDFS. So you see two paths here, one with the help of MapReduce, other one without help of MapReduce here. Two paths you're seeing it here. But ultimately it goes into the HDFS only. Either it will be written into the HDFS and it will be read from the HDFS. But there are two paths we see it here. So in some cases, Hive client can able to directly access the HDFS files. In some cases, when your query is complex, which involves joins, aggregations, summarizations, that time Hive cannot process the HDFS file as it easily. It takes help of MapReduce framework here. So this is the structure. Hive always follows that.
Okay.
So one thing is schemas will be created in the Metastore server, just the schemas. You don't see single record there.
So what is the back end of the Metastore server? Is it like
I'm coming to that.
Okay.
I don't want to confuse in the very beginning, so I'm just doing a discussion at this point. So just understand this point that we have a Metastore server that takes care of preserving the table structure. What do I mean by that? If I am creating a table structure in the Hive like this, so this structure, ID is something, first name is something, what is the format of my fields, where do I store my fields, this information alone will be kept, not the actual data, right?
Yeah.
So the data would be kept in the HDFS. So then what does Metastore server do? It's a service, a daemon running inside your cluster. So either it can store the structure in a simple flat files, or why do we worry about flat files and maintenance of it? Already we have very small tiny database with us. So Derby is the one database Metastore server uses, or MySQL server. There are option given to you as administrator. So as a default, Derby database would come with the Metastore server that is not visible to you. It's already underneath in the cluster it works out. But if you choose to have a bigger database, more number of tables, Derby won't be sufficient. So you would go for a MySQL deployment separately, and that will be hooked up to the Metastore server. This comes in the administration part of the Hive. But let us not worry about this part. Let us say this is taken care by the Metastore server at this point of time. Even if you are working with hundreds of tables, this is fine. But if you think about thousands of tables, maybe the Derby database might not be sufficient. Then you have to go for MySQL server here. So a separate setup you have to make it here. That is the administration part. But what really we are interested is that how about Hive client organizing the data and we're able to pull data. So this is the structure we have. Two ways the Hive client acts smartly. In plain vanilla queries, let us say select star from some XYZ table, then you don't need to do a lot of processing, right?
Okay.
That time it can directly go to HDFS file and bring it data.
So if we do a select star from, so let's say a table, right? And there is a, let's say there is 2 billion records in there. What does it do?
It doesn't go with the MapReduce route.
Okay.
So what it has to do in that case? Size is not deterrent factor here. The only factor is that the kind of complexity, how many splits it requires. If you are what is the query you are returning, select star from XYZ, right? So what is the expectation? You have to read line by line, right?
Yeah.
There is no very complex line splitting in algorithm required. There is no complex field processing required for the Hive query.
Yeah.
It's a simple select star from query. So just open up the file, read line by line. That you can do it in a simple HDFS file access, right? It doesn't need to go with the MapReduce thing. So this is the way it accesses it. So let us take an example here. Let us look at this simple use case. Yesterday I ran through this use case. If you are working on a simple file like this, or just to illustrate the concept here. So basically, this is once you create a file in the HDFS or in local, first thing you have to do in the Hive is that create some prerequisite folders in the HDFS path, and then you could copy the local files into the HDFS. So now in this command, what I'm doing is that home practice is my local file from the Unix. I didn't log in, I think. Let me log in. Hadoop. Right. So this is my local. From a local, I'm trying to copy its employee CSV file into the Hadoop path. This is my Hadoop path. Now, what I'm trying to see, observe carefully. I'm creating a table. I'm defining a structure here. ID is string, first name is string, last name is string, blah blah blah. I'm saying that my fields are separated by the comma. Exactly, because I'm dealing with a comma separated file. And I'm saying that my lines are separated by new line character. That's exactly. There is new line character everywhere. Okay. And then I'm saying that location is this thing. User, practice. See this one? The way I've copied the employee CSV file, user practice Hive employee, in that folder, I'm pointing it a new structure here. Did you see a fundamental shift between the RDBMS and the Hive here? In the RDBMS, you don't have any control on the way the data being organized. Here, you have complete control. So you only copied the file to the Hadoop location, HDFS location, and on top of it, we are defining a structure now.
Okay, that's another step. Okay.
Exactly. So this is called externalization of your data or external table. You copied a file to HDFS, and then on that file, because you know the file structure, so now you're defining a structure on top of it, right? So this is bringing structure on top of file. So once you have the structure, let us say my structure is called employee2 under what? Under database called training. The syntax wise it looks like traditional RDBMS table, but underneath you have a special syntax here that describes the location and format of the file. These three lines describes the format of the file. The bottom three lines describes the structure of the file and where the file can be located. Right? So this is the syntactical approach in the Hive where we create tables on top of simple files. In reality, there is no such table exist at all. We are taking a simple comma separated file and then defining a table on top of it. Right? So once you have the table, then you could pretty much easy. So how do you do? Then type Hive, then you get into Hive shell. It takes a while in the first beginning because we're running in a VM.
Yeah, Madhu, one question.
Yeah.
This program is called like R programming or Hive programming? This script.
Hive.
Oh, okay.
This is Hive. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm trying to open Hive shell now. because I'm running everything in a virtual machine, it might take a little time in the beginning. It need to load up all jar files into its memory.
This is the HDFS, right?
You have some Rajiv, you're asking something?
I
There's
was
some
just
question
asking if
I
this is
couldn't get you.
HDFS. Yeah, I was
No.
just asking if this was HDFS background.
Oh, this is not HDFS. We moved on from HDFS to Hive. There
I know,
are
yeah, but
fundamental things.
the backend for this, is it HDFS or what?
Exactly. That's
Okay.
what, if you look at the primary, the core picture here,
Yeah, okay, that's
even
what.
the Hive works on top of combination of HDFS and MapReduce. Hive doesn't have its own existence. Hive or Pig, then a subsequent class Pig,
Okay.
doesn't have their own existence here. They completely depend on the core systems. Right.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
So what I'm trying to illustrate today is that, so now in yesterday's class, I created the file. So let me do it again. I want to drop the table and recreate it. So now we are into Hive. So when we're talking Hive, other name called for Hive is the warehouse of the Hadoop system. So typically what you expect from warehouse, you will have databases, you will have tables. So let us say what are my databases in the warehouse? Databases. So this will get me all the databases. Show databases. So I have three databases here. Default. OK is the positive successful response from the Hive query. You can ignore the OK part. So the other three things are important for us. Default, training, and Excel demo. And obviously last line would be the time it took to process the query. Because it takes so much of time now because it's a VM. But in a real cluster, it will be millisecond activity. So where does this information came from? Default, training, Excel demo. This is not the data. This is the metadata of the warehouse. So that's what the metadata come from. Here, this thing. This is the gentleman here that takes care of managing the metadata, the structure of data dictionary. So it would have hooked up to DB or MySQL. So in the VM, what I'm using now, it's a sample VM. So most likely it is using Derby database here. Derby. So Derby is a tiny database. It can support excellent read and write for a single user, right? So that's where we got the metadata information here. So once you know the database name, I can get into database. So train database I was using yesterday. So yeah. So how do I create database? You can even create database now. Create database. It's known syntax to you, right? In traditional world, in traditional RDBMS thing. Database, let us say demo1. You can create like that. So a new DB will be created.
So is default something that every Hadoop Hive will have?
Yeah, Hive will have. Hive comes with the default database. That is just for the experimental sake. So in production, when the Hive is moving to production, they typically administrators will remove default.
Okay. Even on a typical environment, all developers won't have access to create databases, right?
Yeah. Yep, that's true. But there is a catch here. Typically, Hive was not so secure till the version 14. Till the version 14. So if you look at the Hive here, it is not displaying the version here. Okay, till Hive version 14, it was not completely secure. If your access to this terminal, I mean to say, if you are an authentic user to the Hadoop cluster, you could able to do anything, any damn thing in the Hive. You could create table, destroy everything. But from version 13 and 14 onwards, they implemented security based on the Unix POSIX permissions. So you must have for directory level permissions in order to create database, in order to create table, drop DB, whatever. Because Hive doesn't depend on SQL-based authentication, what you see typically in the real world. Because in SQL-based authentication, there should be external authentication entity that should manage your authorization.
Like a DBA?
Like DBA. But in Hive, there is no such thing. It's all simple HDFS only, right? What you see here, it's all simple HDFS only. There is no so the other gentleman would be sitting apart from you to manage the Hive authorization here. So what happens typically in Hive is that as long as you have access to the Hadoop cluster, and if you are a legitimate user, and if you have read-write access on Hive warehouse, then you can do pretty much all the things. But if you just have read access, you can browse the metadata. You can't create a new database. That way I'm talking about POSIX permissions, right?
So there has to be some person that is like an admin for Hive, right?
No, they will be there. See, the admin, the Hive admin is not separate from Hadoop admin. Both would be same.
Okay.
Only
Like
thing
DBA.
is,
Admin means like DBA.
Yeah.
no, not like that.
DBA.
In traditional world, what you see a dedicated DBA role, right?
Yes.
They would be creating tables. They would be managing it. They would be evaluating the tables, right? When you need a new column, when you want to
They
drop
will
something.
be giving granting access and everything. Security system is maintained by DBA.
Yeah, as such, Hive doesn't have that kind of model. That's what I'm trying to say. So what will happen is that, let me tell you.
Who will give the like access rights, reading, writing, everything?
Yeah, this is a good point. Let me bring it up. So we're talking about, we have a HDFS layer, right? On top of it, Hive is working on, right? That's what we have been seeing it here.
Yeah.
So whatever activity you do in Hive, that goes into HDFS, vice versa. Now, if you want to have a controlling mechanism here, I mean to say authentication, authorization, Hive, as its architecture is concerned, doesn't have such component called authorization and authentication till version 12. From 13 onwards, there is a lot of people complained about Hive, because this is being called as warehouse, but it is lacking the authorization authentication part of it. So in 13, what they have done, they integrated Hive with HDFS POSIX-based permissions here. POSIX permission nothing but Unix permissions, right?
Okay.
What do I mean by Unix permissions?
Read, write, execute.
Exactly. I want to open another Unix shell.
If you type lsltr, it will show in the left, right? That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah. Sorry, what is the question?
I said the permissions will be displayed on the left when you type lsltr, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I would like to take you to the Hadoop path. See, this is the Hadoop path I have. Employee, like that. Not employee. Hive use a different path here. Sorry. Yesterday I showed them a path. So Hive uses a different, let me put that a path here. It will be easy. Hive meta store path. So in Hortonworks, the path is a little different. Sorry. The path is like Hadoop FS LS. It should be apps Hive think so. Let us try. This is the path Hortonworks uses it.
ఏం చేస్తున్నావు? ఎంత రాసుకోవాలి? మరి ఎందుకు అంత రాసుకో?
Shraddha, could you please mute yourself if you're not? Okay, so look at the thing. This is the place where Hive keeps the metadata information, the warehouse part of it. So look at the permissions we have. Currently, it's open to everyone, right? It has full, complete read-write access to the creator, the group, as well as the entire public, entire world. So anybody can do anything because it's sample VM. It's a VM. It's a demo VM. So it's a complete read-write access to everybody. But in real world, what the people do? Let me get into the path and show you that. So this is the Hadoop path I'm showing you. So this is called the POSIX permissions here. The POSIX permissions consist about three things. One is the owner. Second is the group of the owner. Third is the public. Three sets you see. You see two hyphens here. The first one is the creator of the file. The second one is the group where the owner belongs to. The third one would be the public, the entire rest of the world. So if you take example from it, so this warehouse is open to everybody. But if you look at the demo database, the owner has complete read-write access. The group doesn't have access. They only have read access and execute access. And the public can able to only execute it. They can't even read data. So like that. This is the way the POSIX permission is being controlled. So if a user who connected to demo database, not me, let us say some XYZ user is there, that user comes to demo database, that user cannot create a table or cannot drop a table.
I mean, if I connect to your database, I'll be public, right?
That depends. Let us say we're all formed as a group in Unix POSIX group, Unix file groups.
Okay, then I'll have read.
If you're in the same group, then you become this user. But if you are alien to me, then you become the public.
Okay.
Like that. So POSIX is a pretty much standard thing. This is an age-old file system mechanism in the Unix. So now the Hive works on top of the POSIX permissions here. But now, right from 13 onwards, there is a new component called Beeline. Beeline is there. This is a new version of Hive altogether, advanced version of Hive. There you don't see much of the Hive concepts, but you see a general HTTP version of Hive. I'll touch upon this thing at the end of the course because this is not the primary objective. First thing is you need to get clarity about Hive. This Beeline was developed purely to have more robust security on top of Hive. But the actual semantics of usage, everything is Hive only. But you get a HDFS JDBC based connection here. JDBC based connection. I don't want to confuse you with all these things in the very beginning. So let us have a simplistic Hive understanding. Then at the end, I'll touch upon the advancements happening in the Hive and Pig.
So
Okay.
Madhu, changing this, I'm just curious to know, to change these permissions to someone, is it still chmod?
I didn't get you completely. Could you speak a little louder, Rajiv, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So I just want to know how. So let's say you are an admin, right, and you want to change my permissions to from I'm a guest. Okay, so to change my permissions from just execute to read and execute.
Right.
Do you still use chmod or do you have to use something else? I mean, is it different from
POSIX? This is a POSIX, right? Everything is chmod only.
Okay.
There's the only command left here. But if we chmod. But if you migrate to the Beeline, then nothing is applied here. All things are kind of transparent to you. They're all abstract to you. You don't need to worry about any of the things. In the Beeline has a different syntax, just like the way SQL works. You grant it, you revoke it, You grant select, you grant update, you grant insert. All the things are possible with Beeline. But Beeline needs separate setup. It needs separate server on top of Metastore server. So if you are somebody is migrating to Beeline, so they have to deploy additional components on top of Metastore here. It's called Hive Server 2, a new component. It works on top of Metastore. This itself is a kind of abstracted thing, and there will be one more abstraction called Hive Server 2. So that will be too much at this time to discuss those things.
Okay.
Let us have a simple vanilla case here. Then we'll come back to you at the end of the course. Again, I'm going to cover the integrations part. I'll discuss those things. But did I clarify the question to you? POSIX thing?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Good. So now we're discussing about the Hadoop path, and I would like to show you. So what we have seen now, this metadata being controlled by the Metastore, right? So if I want to use the time, just now I created a database called demo database here. How do I configure demo database? Use demo 1. Now I'm connected to demo database here. Here I can create a new database called. Let me remove this thing. So here I can create a new structure for the file I have created here. This file is already there with me. If you look at the file, go to the HDFS and see Hadoop FS -ls and look at that path here. Have already dumped the file into the path, my tiny file called employee.csv. If you want to see the path, you could very much see that. employee/emp.csv. You could see the file. It's simple comma separate file. Yesterday I created the file. It might take a while because VM. Yeah, simple file. What I'm simple file here. So what I'm showcasing at this point. Yesterday I dumped this file through this command. So here what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to create a table on top of the structure. Remember here, I'm not pointing it to a file, rather I'm pointing it to a folder. That means I can have multiple files in the same folder, right? Are you getting the point here? You could have multiple files. As long as all the files have same structure, your table can work, right? So let me get into the Hive here. I'm running the script here. So my table is ready. So in the location, in the user practice Hive, I have a table. So what I could do, you could select the table, select star from, or the table name you have given employee 2. You got it. Now select star from emp2, where the designation or the first name equal to Ravi. It might be case sensitive. First name equal to Ravi. You could do the query. See, it didn't do anything. Simply, it didn't spin off any MapReduce job for it, because it can open up line by line in the file and can quickly read the file. Let me do one more thing here.
Because it's a small file?
Yeah. Select count of employee 2. Now you see. It can't do in a simple line by line reading. It has to spin off a MapReduce job.
Oh.
So that is the reason I'm talking about. Hive does two things. In simple cases, it can directly open a file and read the content. In some cases, it can do in a state manner. Then it spins off a MapReduce job on the fly and can compute the data. That's what happening now. It is spinning off a MapReduce job and
But
then
isn't it inefficient?
trying to count the records. You have a question?
Isn't it inefficient to do that?
No, this is that's not the question here. That's not the question at all. Inefficiency and efficiency doesn't come into picture because look at the big picture here. The whole objective have to outperform the Oracle or SQL. That's not the objective at all.
Okay.
Is it the case? No, right?
Yeah.
This whole system came into existence just to give a platform to process a huge files that you can't do it in traditional systems. Even it takes 1 week to process a file. Let us take you have a 10 terabytes of file with you. Can you even ever process a file using traditional systems? Be take 1 year or 1 month.
Okay.
Tremendous infrastructure you need, tremendous processing you need. You can't Jiffy, you can't write a query like this and process the 10 terabytes of file. You can't just do it with traditional techniques. So this whole system came into existence just to address those scenarios where you can't do it in traditional way.
Okay.
So
Okay,
the
Madhu,
performance is the second step here. Yeah.
Madhu, one question, quick question. Can I write any inner joins kind of like complex condition?
You can.
In that
That's
type?
what I'm actually I'm about to start the topic today, but since yesterday some people couldn't attend the class, I'm repeating the same concepts here.
Okay, sure.
So what you have seen now, it is called external table. Already there is a location out there and there's a file out there. But in the below syntax, here I'm not mentioning the location here compared to this and this. So in this case, what happens is that the Hive manages the data. In this case, this is called external table. Hive doesn't take care of managing data. So these two are the colloquial terms you will be using it in Hive. So yesterday Raj is asking when I need an external table, when I need internal table. The scenario is that when you have huge files and it doesn't make sense to move the files from one location to other, and you just want to process data where it is, that time you would go for external tables. When security is one concern and when data is not that huge, and again you want to merge many tiny files into a single thing and wanted to process them together, that time you would go for internal tables. So that is the context behind that is the design objectives behind the internal and external tables. But other than that, the usage and the other things, everything is same. Only thing is that what flexibility you need. You want to control the data and don't want to move data, go for external tables. You want better flexibility in managing the small files, then go for internal tables like that. Okay, so that's the recap of the discussion. So I think this would have come. See, I'm started a count of the records. So it totally given me the count is 5. So in the meantime, it has done the lot of map reduction, processing, heavy lifting. So this would you see repeatedly when you go for a complex thing, right? From the count to the aggregations, everything. Each time it spins off a job. So the efficiency factor doesn't come into picture at all because this objective is not to say that it's a most advanced system in the world, but it is the whole objective is to it is a system to process the huge files there you can't dare to process in the traditional systems, right? Let us move on. So other discussion points here. So what are other things there? You just the simple tables or Hive has any other advanced things. So other name for Hive is the warehouse. So warehouse not just will be holding tables and databases, right? It is meant for having indexes. It is meant for having table joins. It is supposed to have supporting views, right? So and Hive has a peculiar types you don't see in traditional worlds: maps, arrays, and not only that, at administrative levels, you see it supports partitions. It supports the authentication part, right from the 13th version. It supports integrations part, and it supports file formats. So let us discuss these things quickly. Partitions thing, indexes, mappers, those things. Authentication part briefly I touched upon with the POSIX related stuff. Integrations is the one, this term being used. Hive can interact with data that is not in its repository. I mean to say, if you have a system, if you have some Hive repository here, and some other team, they have built their repository in the HBase. This is another ecosystem I'll be touching upon next week, HBase. So Hive can internally connect to HBase, can bring data. This is again called external table. External table need not to be a file always in HDFS. It could be another repository as well. It could be an Excel file. It could be MySQL database file. It could be anything. Integrations part. So Hive can integrate with external repository and can look like as if it is holding the data. So this is called integrations part. Hive can interact with Cassandra. If you are from Cassandra is not part of Hadoop, but if you are from Apache and inclined to Cassandra, Cassandra is another NoSQL database. So it can access Cassandra. So Hive can interact with many other repositories, namely the popular ones are HBase and Cassandra ones, right? And Hive can integrate with many. This is about Hive can pull data, push data. But how about Hive can able to interface the external systems? Hive becomes the de facto system in the Hadoop where you can connect to the many systems like Excel, Microsoft Excel. If you are aware of the reporting tools like Cognos, MicroStrategy, Pentaho, Tableau, JasperSoft, all the reporting BA tools, I mean to say. Many BA tools have integration with Hive because Hive supports not just the shell-based CLI. The one you see here is called CLI, Hive command line. But what you see here, what you also get, CLI is the command line interface for the Hive. Hive also supports the JDBC layer through HTTP protocol. JDBC is the communication. Sorry, the data protocol, and the HTTP is the communication protocol. With this HTTP protocol, it can support many of the BA tools, and it can become the de facto the query engine that can hook up to the Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, like that. So because of the JDBC HTTP integration it has. So that is the meaning of the integrations here. And you can control the MapReduce, what is going to happen inside the Hadoop, inside the Hive. The example what we have seen is that it spinned off a MapReduce job here. So you can control the aspects here, not just it's all automatic. You can control how many mappers you would like to spin off, how many reducers you want to spin off. Those things you can control it in the Hive settings. And indexes here. Indexes are pretty much conceptually they are similar to traditional indexes, but there is a catch here. So if you look at the traditional RDBMS systems, the indexes management is a very big thing. There will be a parallel table that with parallel tables being created called index tables. With that with that Oracle or SQL Server manages the indexes on top of the tables. But in Hive, you don't see such big infrastructure to manage the indexes. Indexes predominantly for creating a bookmark on the files. I'll touch upon these things in subsequent classes. Not now. I'll show an example to you. Third thing is the partitioning thing. So Rajiv is asking, is it efficient now? So efficiency was not a real design consideration in the Hive, but there are ways and means you can improve the overall performance of the Hive. Imagine we are dealing with the terabytes of data. So partitioning is a concept where even the traditional systems also leverage. There are two things of two kinds of partitions. One is vertical, second is horizontal partition, right? Vertical partitions is that you would like to partition the table based on the columns. Say you have 100 columns in the table, you would like to put a partition till 50 columns here. This goes into partition, this goes into partition 1, the other 50 will go into partition 2. This is vertical partition. So the file will be split, the data file will vertically split between two different partitions. So this will bring up more parallel IO activity. So if you're writing a query, one column falls under this first partition, second column falling in second partition, you could have a parallel read here and gain much more, you can reduce the latency in this IO. So this is the object of vertical partitioning. But Hive doesn't support the vertical partitioning. There is no such thing in the Hive. Hive supports only the horizontal partition. So what does it mean? So let us say you have a big set of files. Let us say you take the US state population. US has many states, and each state has designated population. And in each state, a lot of ethnicity combination is there. And if you're trying to build a database on top of the ethnicity, primarily, you would like to partition the huge data. You're dealing with millions of records. So if you want to be more efficient to retrieve data, what you do, you partition the data based on the states, say Texas, New York, California, like that you partition it, Wyoming, like that you partition it. So what happens underneath the partition is that in Hive, there is no such thing called a separate management body to look after all the partitions. From the beginning, I'm saying is that Hive is an abstraction on top of HDFS. What does it mean? It is simply a component that leverages the power of MapReduce in HDFS. Hive doesn't have its own significance, right? Its own controlling mechanism. So when I'm talking about the term called partitioning thing, so when you define a partition on the table, it physically creates that many folders here. Texas folder, New York folder, California folder, and Wyoming folder here. So how does it look like? It looks like this. Let me clear up the screen. So we are in this warehouse here, and all these folders are the database folders. You see, these are all not the file. They're all directories here. I could go to any of the directory here. ls warehouse. Let me take a training DB. So I'm trying to see the content of the training DB. It's all when you create a database, it becomes a directory in the warehouse. And earlier yesterday I created a table called employee1. Even the employee1 also became a directory inside the training database, right? .db represents the database directory, root directory, and underneath each one is a table here. So I have a table called employee, but what is the reality here? The reality is a simple directory, right? Let us look at that content of the EMP. Yeah, so the file yesterday what I imported, the file actually got directly copied onto the directory here. If I copy another file, let us do one thing. Let me copy the another file here, load content into the something. I'm trying to load one more time onto the same file. Yeah, I copied the file. Let us see what would have happened now. So because I'm using same file, it didn't create a new file to me, right? So what if it didn't create it? So if I change the file name to something else, right? So if I change the file name to something else, so I have a file called, where is my file? Home in path, right? So let me take the file. So what I'm going to do, let me make a copy of it. CP like this. I make it to employee employee 001. I'm just copying it, right? Where I'm copying it in the shell. Yeah, I copied it. So I would like to take this new file here. Just to want to illustrate what does it mean by copying, putting data into the Hive here. I'm going back to the Hive shell, running the same thing again. Yeah. So I copied, I imported data into the one of the Hive table. Now let us see the table now, what the content we have. It is replacing it. Did I mention the replace?
You said overwrite.
It is overriding it. Oh, sorry. This is my fault. That I forgot the thing. So I could even use the same old thing. I couldn't realize that. Sorry, my mistake. So I'm trying to dump data into it. Yeah. Now see, I did 2 imports into the table. So each time you see that the file will be generated into the Hive directory. Oops, what happened now? Did I do? Oh, my mistake again. And we shouldn't be putting the override. Let us copy it. Sorry, taking time here. Yeah, you see it now. So in the Hive warehouse, under the training database, under the employee table, we have 2 records here, right? So you can keep adding files one after other. There is no harm in it. Or you can keep overriding the files. So as long as these 2 files conforms to same structure, your table will be, you can access the table from anywhere. So what is the expectation here? Since I copied the same file, you see double records, duplicate records all the time here, right? So if I say select start from database is DynaDB, you would see duplicate records here because I copied the same file 2 times here. So you could even do it one more time if you wish to. Same thing. Let us say if I could even do the same thing one more time. Run the input command one more time. Right. Now you see how many files have been created. See, it has taken, it didn't actually overwrite the file. It has given a new name to the dump I did now. It created 3 files now. You see this, the Hive management here. Who is doing this management of this? This is done by the Metastore, right? So you can keep adding the files. If you mention the overwrite flag here, then the existing file will be replaced. Otherwise, you will have another copy of the file. So what is essentially happening when you're importing the data into the Hive? Hive is creating one more file in the meta warehouse under the database under the table directory. But essentially, table is nothing but directory under a Hive. It is not like in traditional databases. Traditional database, you never know where table is, right? So that is the change here. So if you run the same query again, you see triple records here in each case because we are using same file again and again. So this is what I'm trying to explain on the partitioning part. In the partitioning part, when you define a partition, say on the hues file on the state wise, so each state would become a folder inside your warehouse table directory here. So if I define a partition on the employee based on the designation, say managers, developers, testers, something like that. So under the employee, you would see furthermore directories here, and in each of the directory you have the specific data set here. That is what meant by partitioning part. So with the partition, your queries will be much faster compared to not having partitions. Even in Oracle SQL Server, primarily partition being used to improve the performance, right? When they're exceeding the gigabytes of data, Oracle also becomes slow. So then they go for indexing, extensive indexing and partitioning it. So that is the concept. So I'll give some examples about the partitioning things in the subsequent class. And now, like traditional systems, Hive supports views, Hive supports table joins, and Hive has special types. Apart from integers, long, float, strings, it also supports some maps and arrays. I'll discuss that part. So this we have seen this part in creating internal tables, and creating external tables we have seen it. And yeah, let us spend little time on this. The special types, Hive uses it. So you could have arrays in the input commands here, array of RAM, sham, like that. Structures also you could have, and maps also you could have. So how do you create a, where do you use this kind of special types? Let us look at a data set here. This is a JSON format file. This is not in comma separated file. So remember, Hive supports many formats, not just text files. This is one more advancement you see from traditional systems. So it might not be efficient in retrieving data, but if you look at the variety of formats it deals with, there are a lot of formats it deals with it, especially XMLs, Avro, JSONs, text files. Text files, you could name anything, it can support many things. Comma separated files, tab delimited, pipe delimited, fixed lengths, sequence files, it supports many things. So in this case, we are dealing with the JSON files. So JSON files will have key value combination, right? Name, value, key, name, value is John Doe, salary something. But this is again an employee file. Employee has subordinates, manager subordinates. So those subordinates, we are referring them as array here. Look at it. Here we are using an array here. And the salary information about the manager, deductions, we are giving a structure here. So you can compare this these two, JSON format with the table structure. In the employee, this is advanced employee version. So name is simple string, salary is a float. But subordinates is an array of strings. You see this structure here. We are creating the table in compliance with the JSON format. Address, so deductions. Deductions is a map, means key value pairs. Deductions are what? The key is federal tax, and this is the tax value. Key is the state tax, this is the value. Like that. The deductions are a map. Deductions are belongs to map data type. You see the map data type here. The address again is a structure here. Structure more like looks like a class. You will have a field and its value. Look at the address structure here. There is a street and it has a value. City, it has a value. It is like structure. You can keep adding it. So this way you can see the power of Hive now. Hive is not only for the comma separated files or the tab delimited files. It can support wide variety of formats. So this is one of the reason Hive became most popular ecosystem component in the entire Hadoop, right? Can you imagine this kind of file being processed in traditional systems? You can't do it.
Yeah.
But simple defining a structure on the file, you can process it. So once you have the file, how can you query it? Let us take the examples here. Is it clear to you all, this slide? Let me zoom it a little bit. So on the same file, how do you query it? You have a complex types in your structure. You have a JSON file of employees. So many employees you have. Because JSON, once you have JSON, you don't have to worry about the table joins. You remember what we were dealing with is, we are dealing with three sets of file. The employee profile, employee pay scale, the employee staff information, employee the address part of it, employee demographic information. Four things we are dealing in a single structure. In a traditional world, if you have to deal with this kind of thing, you have to create 4 different tables, right? In the name of normalization, you create one table for the profile, one for the subordinates, one for the taxes, other one for the addresses, because you have to follow normalization techniques. Because Hive comes from a different world, its objective is to process, simplify things. You could have a JSON file that can have more descriptive information. And even nowadays, many people turning towards JSON formats from the traditional systems, right? So let us look at the example here. How do you query it on the same file? If you want to query the simple things like name and deductions, but deductions are the structure here. So you would get a response like this. Name is something in the array would be displayed in the braces. But if you want to get a specific subordinate is a array, you want to get the first subordinate, then name subordinate of 0. And deductions are what? Deductions are the map, key value pairs. So you can refer any deduction by the name, state tax, federal tax, like this. Or if you want to have so now you can do pretty much everything you would like to see. You could apply many functions in the Hive upper. Those things you could do. You could do some calculations on top of the things. So they're doing some calculations. They're doing some round off functions here, right? Similarly, what you could do an address. One more example I have. I don't think I have address example. Yeah, let us look at the other aggregate. This is about the dealing with the complex types. Now you could deal with the maps using the indexes. You could deal with the structures. You could deal with maps on the key value information. You could deal with the arrays with the indexes. But in case of structure, you can directly say, let us take the example of this structure. What we have is address, right? Address has street, city, zip code, right? I think I will have an example on it. You could write an example like this. Let me pull up my pen. So in this case, what you say, sorry. So you refer like a dot, here at employee, different employee. What you say is that address dot, so if you have to access the address structure, what you do is that employee, the employee is a table name. So if you want to access the employee address is a structure inside the Hive. How you do is that select, let me write in a notepad, easy. So that's the case, what you do, select, name is simple string, so you will access like this, name from employee. But if you want to get an address of the employee, in the address you want to get the city name, select name, comma, address dot city from employee. So as simple as this. If you want to get the federal tax of the employee, how do you get? Select name. Federal tax is a what? Tax is a map. So you say as tax of the square brackets federal tax. Are you all with me now? Am I confusing you?
No, I can't.
Rajiv?
I'm here.
Yeah, I'm making sense to you all. Sharda, Raj,
Yes.
RK. Yeah. So I'm trying to describe the complexity here. See, basically I'm not going to confuse you with the stuff here. So if this is the structure you have, this is a pretty complex structure. You have 4 sets of data in a single data set, right? You have employee name, you have employee staff information, employee taxes information, and employee demographic information. You have 4 sets of data here, right? And you are dealing everything in a single table, right? How do you do? There are very decent ways in Hive you can handle this. This is impossible in traditional systems, right?
No,
We are not.
create a table like in any database. Like we can create a name as one column, salary as one column, deduction as one column, tax as just wait, sir. Address is one column. These all the things in a one each column, and it will become a one table of data.
No, you can't do. Can you deal with JSON format? This is a JSON format. This is not a straight vanilla case here.
Okay, when you create a table in other database, like we can just drop it like create table name
No.
is equal to.
Point. I think you're missing a point here. I'm talking about a case where you have 4 different sets of data in a single record. This you can't achieve in a traditional system. That's what I'm
In a
trying to
traditional system, this will ideally be 4 different tables, and
Exactly.
in order to normalize, we have to do different keys, and then you have to join, right?
Exactly. So in traditional systems, what you have to do, you have to have an employee staff, employee profile. This would
Employee
be
taxes or something.
employee
address.
profile. If you normalize this data, you would end up like doing like this: employee staff table, employee
Employee employee salary, employee
address,
manager.
employee taxes. You end up with the 4 tables. Taxes, sorry, typo. Right. This is the normalized format. If you want to deal with this, these many tables you will have from the single structure, from the single format. But look at the Hive power here, Hive the capability here. It doesn't really need all this normalization, denomination things. You could, if you have a structured information, JSON is pretty much structured. It's not unstructured data. If you have XML file, that's a structured one. If you have a comma separated, that's structured one. As long as if you have a known structure, and how you can able to access that. So in a single table, what we're doing is that, what we have done is that we didn't define everything together. What we said, instead of these 4 tables, what we said is that this is my table here. Create table on the name is string, salary is float, subordinates are the array, deductions are the map data type, address is the structure, right?
Yeah, in Teradata also we create the same thing like this only.
JSON, on JSON you mean to say?
Teradata database.
Yeah, database is fine, but can you access a text file?
Table like this
Can
only.
you access a text file here, which is in JSON format? So Teradata is structured one. I don't arguing on this thing that you can't create these arrays and maps, but can you work on a simple JSON text file and look like as a real blown up table? That is not possible, I think so.
Yeah, you can get the data everything, but not like a table thing.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say, if you have the data that is in text file, but the format is JSON, and on top of it you can create a structure, well formatted structure, and can able to access like a SQL. Are you getting the point here?
Yeah.
Rajiv, Raj, and RK? This is the one of the core competency of the Hive.
Yeah, Madhu.
Let me finish up. Yeah.
Yeah, one quick question. One thing. Teradata also support JSON formats. Like we can create a multiple structures in Teradata.
Yeah, that's what because
I'm not denying the fact that Teradata supports JSON, but you know, you have to dump the data into Teradata through some mechanism, right?
Yes, that is true.
So the point I'm trying to bring in is structure you could have achieved it, but if it's a simple text file, you can't apply a table on top of a text file, right? You have to import data into Teradata.
Yes.
Is it correct or not?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
To
So
load the data.
yeah, that's correct. So there are many things. Even if you take MongoDB also supports JSON. That's not a big deal there. Many of the NoSQL systems, even the Oracle also supports JSON to some extent. Oracle latest 11G has support on JSON format. Even Microsoft SQL also has a data type called XML, and now they're coming up JSON data type on it. That's not the contention point here. The contention point is that we're not actually importing or exporting anything here. The data is there as it is in a text file, but the format is JSON. On top of it, since we could sniff the structure of the file, we are defining a table here, and we are using that whole thing without any big import or export, just like a table. So that is the point. So this actually brings up the definition of big data here. We are not doing too much things to process a complex thing. With a few simple activity, like defining a structure of it, you can able to do pretty much things. So once you have a structure like this is a regular table for you. You can join this table to some other table, do everything like that, right? That's what I want to bring it up. Not to scare you that no, this is the only thing, Hive is the only thing can do it. But look at the simplicity in the Hive, which is dealing the complex things, right? Agree or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So let us move on. I would like to touch upon other points as well today, because I would like to wrap up the Hive's discussion today. Tomorrow, if anything is there, we'll discuss any questions or clarifications on top of it. And I would like to give you another example to you, another sample set to you, so that you can start working on the Hive. At least you, Rajiv and Shardar, Raj, you should start working on the Hive. If you have not done pretty much progress on the earlier discussions, this you should be doing it. Otherwise, you know, you lost the content about it.
Okay. Yeah, that's what. This is my question, Madhu. When you write Hive, select average price close. Before we are keeping one arrow like bracket or something.
Oh, this one you mean to say?
Yeah.
Oh, this is the prompt. So don't worry. This is just to illustrate that this will start from this prompt. Sorry, this is the arrow. You always type from that arrow only. That's what I mean to say.
Okay. Yeah, usually in the SQL we don't put anything. Just we'll write select star from.
Oh,
yeah,
I agree.
That's what, because this is my question. I could not explain the question.
I got you now. Okay. So just to say that this is the prompt. You always start typing after the prompt.
Can you send the slides, Madhu, to our email?
A little louder, please.
Can you send the slides to our email?
Sure.
Yeah, already sent it. Already sent it.
Oh, okay.
I'll send you again. No, that's not an issue.
Yeah, so we have to write in this prompt only, like keeping arrows or something. What we have to call this one greater than or like.
Arrow will be there automatically once you have a Hive, unless you quit Hive.
Okay.
Now you're quitting it. Now you came to Unix.
Okay.
Till now you're not in Unix. Once you hit Hive,
okay,
you enter into a new shell here.
Okay.
So now you're entering it now. Hive will open now.
Okay. So it automatically gives like when you there is no need of typing anything.
Yeah, it is now getting into Hive. It takes it. Yeah, it is now. Look at it. The prompt will come again now. Takes a while. Yeah. So now you are in Hive. See?
Okay.
This is the prompt. You press enter. You're no more in Unix. You are in Hive now. But the moment you quit it, Now we came back to Unix now.
Okay.
This is Hive shell. So the commands are listed down here. These represents the Hive Unix commands here. Sorry, Hive commands here.
Okay.
So in this slide, I want to give you an heads up about the aggregate functions here. You could do average functions. You could, all these things are called the built-in functions in the Hive. What you see it in Oracle, Teradata, any other traditional systems, right? Pretty much nothing. You could have subqueries here from, you could have alias for subquery, and then that can be joined to the main query like that. All the pretty much things you can do.
Okay.
More to that, there are some special functions to deal with array. There are some explode function that expands the array and multiplies it like that. Explode is, it converts the horizontal factor into vertical factor like that.
Okay.
And there are some other things also. Other functions like.
Do you have any notes for this, like explaining the like select array, explode, whatever these
Yeah,
things?
notes. I'll mention that in the reference. I'll send you that one. Reference link
Yeah.
is there.
So that if notes is there, we can practice by reading those things.
Right. So on top of the, let us say this array is a function, explode is a function, you can build in functions. But you would like to use your own customized function. This is called user-defined functions. Then you have to get into your complex thing, writing. You have to write a Java code for it. So if you need to write a very custom large algorithm that you would like to use that as part of Hive, then you have to write a Java code, compile them into a jar file. That jar file you have to add to Hive, and then start work. You can consume that the build function as like a native function. Look at the thing. Jodaic is this to determine your the star or something like that. So they written some small function based on date of birth something. So once you give a date of birth, it will tell you the Jodaic sign, is it Aries, something like that. So this is not a built-in function of the Hive. Now you are extending the Hive. You're writing a Java code and compile them in a jar file that you have to add to Hive, and then you can query on the Hive just like any other function.
So Zodiac is the jar file, is it?
Jar file, yeah. Jodaic is a function defined in the jar file.
Okay.
So this is the extension part, if at all if you need. Most of the time you don't need. Unless you have a very specific use case, you don't need extension. But point to say is that this is also available. UDFs, you see in the UDFs, right? In SQL, Oracle, Teradata, definitely these things you will have. User-defined function, UDFs you call it, right? You extend a function in the query, right?
Yeah.
That thing is the same thing is there in Hive as well. And views, obviously. Not to mention, views are pretty handy. So you can create a view on table, right? You can have a create a table like this and can have a view on top of it. Nothing much different than the traditional views what you see in the regular systems. Pretty much same. You can create a view, drop a view. You can have a join statement of a select queries and then create a view for it. And partition. This is what I was describing earlier. So when you create a partitions on a table, say on a country, you could have multiple partitions, nested partitions. Here in the example, I have a partition on the country. Under the country, I have a sub-partition called on the state. So in first case, CA refers to Canada, I think. I have a partition on the country, and under that there is a partition on ABC. And I have a partition on the US country and sub-partitions there. So this gives a flexibility. Here, look at the kind of query you're. Let me get you the queries here. So how do you query it here? See, select star. You say the city name and the state name. Sorry, I'm sorry. My apologies. You query on the country name and you query on the state name. When you define the where conditions like this in the query, this query doesn't look at all the warehouse tables. It straight away gets into the exact partition and searches it. So partitions basically will narrow it down your search area and will be more efficient. See here, you are loading the data by defining the partition here. Country is US, state is some California, like that. So this is one of the way to improve the performance of the table. So I could give some, I can send you some samples around it. Once you're practicing it, you will come to know. Hive itself, what I mean to say is that if you really want to get full length and breadth of Hive, it itself takes almost 10 days to understand Hive. Hive has pretty much sophisticated features. But in this whole class, I would like to touch upon the high-level concepts of Hive, and I will leave you with a hint about what are the extensions you have in Hive. If you want to cover full length and breadth, it takes 10 days to really cover a whole thing, all the Hive features. Not just, these are not exhaustive topics. Furthermore, things are there in Hive. You could have very refined things in the indexing part also. But I think this is sufficient to get started with Hive, and I'll leave you with the links about, you can query on your own. But to conclude the session on the inputs here, Hive can deal with any kind of file. Example like text files, RC files, row column files. This is you never heard about. I don't think you would have heard about RC file. You would have heard about JSON. You would have heard about Avro. Avro is like, it's a JSON only, but will have schema within it file structure. RC file is popular for the NoSQL databases. So Hive supports RC file as well. Row column, it's all column oriented files. Row is a less significant rather than column. They doesn't look like a comma separated. You see all columns being printed line by line, like this.
Madhu, this is Raj.
Yeah.
Madhu, I have a question, request. Could you please send all these different types of files as attachments, like text file, sequence file, JSON file, RC file, Avro file?
I have the text, I have the JSON. I don't have the samples with me. I have to prepare. Let me see I can do it or not. I'll take some time. I can't do it today, but I can send you next week.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Because I didn't prepare the samples for these three.
Okay.
Because I have to work on the weekend, I have to prepare these files if you really want the samples. But for time being, you can work on the text files.
Very little data, yeah.
What is that?
We can put in very little data,
Yeah, exactly. I'll give samples. But what I'm recommending you is that, I'll do that. But let me complete one more last thing here, called indexes here. So definitely I can send you the sequence, Avro and RC files, but not in this week, because one more thing, I might have to travel on Friday. So my apologies, there is some urgent thing coming up to my job. I might have to travel, so we might not have class on my Friday morning.
That is Thursday for us.
Thursday night, yeah. Thursday night. Okay. So the reason I'm extending this today's class, so that now we'll cover up as much as content as possible on the Hive, so that I leave you with some exercises. So you will be doing it once I come back. I will clarify the doubts and also will start unpicking. So these things are definitely, I'll help you with this, so that it will be easy for you to tackle the real world problems. But last thing I would like to cover today is that indexes part. Did I cover the joins? Someone is asking about joins, right? I think I did not cover it. Joins. Yeah, this is the join. Sorry, I missed this point. My apologies. Yeah, look at this join statements here. It supports all three known joins to you: inner join, outer join. In the outer join, you have left outer join, right outer join, and full outer join. It supports all. See, when you don't define any join here, look at this statement here. Select star. There are two tables we have. One is it's a self join basically. Stock A, alias stock B is self inner join. So you could join on this. This command basically becomes inner join. You're joining on a.ymd equal to b.ymd. Whereas this statement is about you're joining two tables, stock tables and dividend tables here. Then you're defining outer join here, left outer join here. And here in the below statement, you're defining a full outer join. These examples, I'll send you this. Right? Okay. Is someone dropped? Everyone there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay. So
Yes,
this is
sir.
about join. So yeah. Someone has a question? Rajiv, you have any question? Someone is asking a question. I barely able to hear you. Okay. So this is the join part. So join, in terms of joining, table joining, there is nothing new in Hive. All the knowledge you have in the traditional world, you can apply it here. But where I want to emphasize is that the partitions part. This is a fairly new concept to you, if I am not wrong. This you can practice it. I am again going to send the examples around this partition part. And then again I'll prepare some samples around these inputs. Finally, I would like to touch upon the indexes part. So indexes part, it is like this. Right. So if you are trying, Hive supports indexes in the way that it it internally maintains as a partitions. Look at the statement here. Create index on the table. The index structure, index class is, it's all Java jargons. So what you're saying is that with a default rebuild, blah blah blah, things like that. There's some properties like that. On the table, you're giving a name for the index thing. It's pretty same semantic in traditional world, right? You give a name for the index. There you're saying that partition by country and name, and saying the comment here. So in other words, indexes and partitions are not two different things. They're pretty much same. But the one simplification indexes give you is that when you have index, you don't have to mention the partition names in the where class here. That is the only advantage you get it here. Other than that, indexes and partitions both are same in the way Hive is going to handle them. When you create index, I'm going to split the table in terms of directories by the way you have created indexes and groups the data. It physically creates the directories there, the directory of the main table, directory of the index entity, and then the nesting like this. Similarly, what happens in index are the same thing. It physically groups the data in terms of directories. But only the advantage you get it is that you don't have to mention the where condition. In the where condition, you don't have to mention the partition values here. The one you see here, what you're doing, where city name is, country name is something, the state name is something. This you have to always have to mention when you have partitions on table. But when you create index on the table, this overhead you don't have to write about all the time. So that is the concept about the index. So in practical world, in my case, if you ask me, I never use indexes in my my practice. I always go with the partitions because partitions give me the flexibility of organizing data in my own control. Whereas indexes, you don't have that complete control there. Barely I ever, only for POC sake only I'm using indexes, but in production scenarios I never use indexes. But point to say, this is the old generation technique. This is now fading away. So people are now moving towards partitions now because you have more control and more visibility on data being, how data being organized. right? Are you all with me? Are you getting the points about the Hive, how it is going to handle data when you're
Yeah,
talking about these concepts?
yeah, Madhu,
These,
one question.
yeah,
Can I connect the Hive directly to the any BI integration,
you
BI
can,
integration tools?
you can, you can't.
But
I mean to say, sorry, the exact answer is no. You can't directly connect Hive, but you need to have a middle layer called JDBC interface. So you
okay,
have a Hive here,
if I use the
and you have a
JDBC
BI tool.
interface, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a JDBC interface called Hive server.
Uh-huh.
This is called Hive server. Hive server 2 to be specific. If you have this component deployed in your cluster, this will have its own IP address. Excuse me. This will have its own IP address and port number and will have own authentication mechanism. Once you have it, this Hive server will connect to the Hive repository, and BA server can enable to connect to the Hive server 2.
Okay. So in BI itself, like I can use the Hive script directly if the connection is there, integration is there.
You can use everything. All Hive commands will work in the Hive server 2.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Now, for the people who can't afford to have this interface, with Hive version 13 onwards, they're giving new component called Beeline.
Yeah.
This is again a part of the Hadoop only. It only comes after Hadoop 2.0 versions onward. So this, once you have it, don't need to worry about JDBC layer, all these things. Directly BA can able to talk with Beeline.
Okay.
It internally manages everything. This Beeline will abstract all these things.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I think I took 1 more hour today, but I want to cover all the concepts around Hive today. So soon after this class, I would like to send you the samples around the. Oh yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention. I think all of you download the dataset airport dataset. In the beginning, I have sent you the prerequisites. I think you have downloaded the airport dataset here. Have you? Raj, Sharda, I think she left.
I don't think I have it.
I have to check.
Okay. If you have not done so, it is there in the prerequisites. If you look at the earlier file I sent you, if you look at the earlier very beginning, I sent you the script, right? The first Hadoop 2.0 prerequisites thing. There underneath you have these links there.
Yeah.
Dataset downloads.
Okay.
Right? So this is what I'm going to use it again. And this script I'm going to send you. This is a quite big one. You'll have a pretty hands-on exposure to Hive. And I've already defined some tables here. So there I mentioned some use cases. I would leave it up to you to work on this. I give some use cases, look at the data and try to solve these use cases. I've given the structures here, table structures. You don't have to worry about table structures. Directly you'll get it. Just make sure you have these file paths, make it ready, do the preparatory step there according to your choice, but structure remains same. Once you do it, let us do this attempt this use case and see. This involves writing some join condition, those things. I'll give you the reference links also where to find more notes about the joins, partitions, then you'll get to know. I'll mention the references to you. I'll put these references here. Okay, so please all, maybe we'll have class tomorrow, but not on Friday morning, Thursday night. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you these links to you. Please start work on Hive.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I would like to spend some time with RK today. Join now. If you wish, you could be there, or you can, you could leave. Rajiv, Raj, Sharda.
Okay.
Yeah. Good night. I think I'll have to leave. It's too late here. So.
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to stay now. I have to discuss with RK.
Okay. Good night.
Yeah. Good day. Good night to you, all of you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there, Madhu.
You'll be there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. RK, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there, Madhu.
Yeah. So RK, what we have been discussing, it's been 10th day now.
Okay.
We are into Hive and discussing these things. So beginning, this is the prerequisite I would expect you to have. You should have a VM like this. I'm using a Hortonworks VM, and then there is some preparatory tools you need to have. So this file will take you to this one. Sorry. At least you should have JDK. You should have Windows 7 PC, and then JDK like this. I mentioned all the versions here. Just
Okay.
keep download all these things,
Okay, sure.
and then Eclipse also you should have if you want to write the MapReduce programs. You should download the Hadoop 2.6.0. These two are required for the MapReduce coding.
Okay.
This is the one, Hortonworks VM is the one, this is a heavy one, almost 4 gigabytes file. You should download it. And then you should have a small SFTP software that actually ease out you to transfer file between your local Windows 7 to the Unix machine.
Okay, sure.
And
So,
then finally there are some references
all these
here.
files,
And then
one question, Madhu. All these files should be downloaded in VMware, not my direct system, right?
no, everything should be in Windows PC only.
Okay, Windows PC. Okay, sure.
I will help you in setting up the VM.
Okay.
You
Sure.
have to have two things here. You're seeing two things here. One is that this is a VM player software. Under that, we are running a Hortonworks machine.
Okay.
So you should have combination of VM player and Hortonworks here.
Okay.
You need to have putty. You need to have. This is not mandatory. If you wish, you could ignore it. But these things are required thing. VMware player and Hortonworks VM.
Okay.
Right. So
Okay, sure.
if you have these things, and also download the data sets, and also I've shared the Hive commands and the material to you. So
Okay.
have it ready tomorrow. Tomorrow also I'm going to spend you additional time with you.
Okay.
So once you have it, I can get you start on the HDFS and HDFS in the beginning. Then in the weekend or so, I'll catch you up on the MapReduce part.
Okay, sure. Madhu, before that, what are the course you're going to cover, majority of them,
Content, right?
contents.
Content, yeah, I think I've described it earlier. Okay, did they organize? Did they not tell you about the content? Okay, I think.
Yeah, they sent the mail, I think. Okay, have a look.
Okay, so content-wise, if you look at it, I'm going to cover the initially. We'll be covering about the. I assume that you don't have any idea about big data. That is assumption. Sorry if I'm that assumption,
Yeah.
but that is the
correct,
expectation I have.
I have zero knowledge.
Sorry. So I'll cover up the big data aspect. So what is the emergence to learn the Hadoop system now, and then we'll get into the Hadoop and some use case of the Hadoop, and get into the HDFS and MapReduce. What are the architectural things are there? How to get started on these things, and then in the week 2. Now we're in week 2. Almost we are closing. We are past the. We're close to the week 2. So I'll talk about the Hive. This is a pretty big one because many concepts are involved in this Hive. Pig is a fairly simple one. You don't have to deal much complexity in the pig.
Okay.
But pig is powerful, but again, it doesn't need to have a lot of background. Hive needs to have a lot of background because it's a pretty popular thing, and unless you understand the background, you really can't do much good things in Hive. And HBase is again a big thing. It needs some time to elaborate on the concepts. But once you got the concepts, this is fairly easy to access it, unlike Hive. This is the week 2, and it might spill up to week 3 as well, these 3, because this is fairly big concepts you have to understand. I'll also, there will be some hands-on also in these areas. The one today you've seen it, I'll be asking you to do some use cases. Week 3, I'll touch upon the integrations part. Though I can't spend on the hands-on with integration because it takes hell lot of time. If you want, integration itself takes 2 weeks time if you really want to get length and breadth of it. But I'll touch upon some of the high-level things in the integrations part. Integration in the sense that many of the Apache systems can integrate with Hadoop, and vice versa also true. And one more thing I would like to emphasize on the scoop. This is a really important tool you should have when you are positioning yourself as a Hadoop competent person. So I'll touch upon some samples around Scoop. Scoop is for data import tool. Then you should have Hadoop 2.0 exposure as well. This is what currently industry is heading on. So we should have Hadoop 2.0. So far we discussed about Hadoop 1.0. Hadoop evolved over the periods that we have discussed the new things, and many people are moving towards 2.0 now. In the last week, we'll touch upon the high-level concepts, high-level tools about Flume. This is to deal with unstructured data. Q is so far we are learning in hard way. You're opening the shells here. If you're not familiar with the shells, you might get a little confused in the beginning. But if you are if you're not really keen to learn the shell-based things, you have a alternative here. You have a discount here saying that Q is the one that simplify many things. So let us not take luxury in the beginning. Let us do things hard way. Then you'll appreciate the sophisticated things at the end. Then OG, I'll talk about OG, and lastly I'll leave you up with a. So far I've always been talking about Java, but Java is not the only thing you could work on Hadoop. You could take any of the streamable programming things like Python, Ruby, and Rails. They can work on. They can integrate with Hadoop. So I'll touch upon the Python-based integrations. So initially I was trying.
Basically, like I'm looking 2 things from the Hadoop actually. Currently, I'm working as a BI architect. Reporting side, I used to handle business objects, SAP business objects, as well as Tableau. So, as per my boss, here is a recommendation like data science and R programmism is important. So those topics won't cover in this course.
Yeah, R is a different thing. It's a different world altogether. This session basically, take you to the place where you can make your data ready. R is the next level of data processing, right?
Yes, correct.
So R is there are R integrations to the Hadoop, but R is not native to the Hadoop.
Okay. So basically, I'm looking for the R as well as data scientist.
Oh, that's a different thing. That's a different topic always. That actually, if you are keen on this, there is a separate thing. In fact, I recommend is that you should have a data science course, a separate thing apart from Hadoop. This is where you do a lot of the machine learning, the supervised learning, unsupervised learning, the natural algorithms, the regression.
Cloudera already. I go through that many videos and lectures.
So R is not part of the content I have because I didn't plan for it. But what this course will take you is that it will get you familiar with many of the Hadoop things. So what is happening nowadays in the industry is that R needs a bigger data set, as you know, right? And one of the fundamental thing in analytics is that the higher the larger the data set, the accurate would be the results, right?
Correct. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, that is a fundamental thing in the analytics. So as long as you're working in a small data sets, so you will have a lot of bias in these outputs, bias in the end result, right? Because of the bias exists in these small data sets. So that's the reason people would like to fall onto the big data where you have wide variety of things. Then take the full universe of corpus and then start processing on the larger piece so that the localized biases will be subsided with the huge data sets. Right? Yes. So that's when people tend to but to link up R with Hadoop, you need to do a lot of processing. So the Hive, Pig, and the tools I'm showing it to you, they will enrich the non-structured data, unstructured data, or meaningless data into a structure so that R can take it on further.
Yeah, that is
So
true.
without that,
Yeah.
let us say if I give a simple log file, R cannot do anything with that, right?
Okay. Yeah,
That
I work
needs
with
transformation.
Cisco. I work with Cisco basically. Like we have a proposal. Like we are going to start the Hadoop big data very soon. So
Okay.
especially we want to integrate the R as well as data scientists.
Okay.
Because we need like analytical data reporting. So
Right.
that's what we are thinking. That's why like I want to take it this training.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That is a different course altogether. Okay. If you
Yeah.
are keen on that.
Okay.
Yeah. In
So,
fact, I'm going to start another session. I'm actually preparing the content for it basically. That's also many people are asking about that kind of thing. There, I don't expect you. I'll not be touching upon the core concepts of fundamentals of Hadoop.
okay.
I expect that already you have some familiarity with Hadoops, and we'll get start. Let us say data is already there in Hadoop, and we start running up some algorithms. That
Oh,
won't be
okay.
this much exhaustive. This course is almost a month-long course because this is like teaching everything from the beginning.
Correct.
But if you are thinking about data scientist thing, that's say pretty quick. 2 weeks we can wrap up the things. First week we'll set a stage to prepare data. Second week we'll write some famous algorithms. Once you get a hang on the algorithms, you can do on your own.
Correct.
No big wonder in that.
Correct.
So that's a different thing, okay, if you are keen on that.
Okay. Let me think about that. I will talk to my colleague, boss. Then,
Okay.
based on that, I'll take a decision on this finally.
Okay.
Okay. I really appreciated, Madhu. Your lecture really good, nice.
Yeah, but that's my pleasure. Let us know the organizers if you want to continue, you can join tomorrow. Otherwise, if you like to have a different thing, you might. For me, it takes another 1 month actually. I'm still in preparation state.
Okay.
I'm trying to put things together what is needed. Or you could send to the organizers. You could take my email ID, and you could send me the required thing so that that will be easy for me to frame the content.
Only especially two things. That's what we got a discussion on the meeting. R and data scientist. That's all. Because we are using business object, SAP business objects, SAP Tableau, some other, we have some other BI reporting tools, EDW, and right now we are using Teradata, and we are bringing all the data into Tableau as well as business objects. So we are some conflict, bringing the data into BO and Tableau. So we want to bring that to big data, like a Hadoop with R. That's what we decided, and even all the business stakeholders, they are interested on data scientists especially.
So and for your information, maybe sorry actually cutting you like this. One more option is there. Not just R is the only solution in the Hadoop. R is not only the exploiter of the Hadoop. If organization is very keen on doing exploratory work on the analytics, R is one age-old thing. I mean to say, there are many contributions in the R. You have many algorithms in the R.
Yeah, that is true. But in the Tableau, for example, if you take the Tableau BI tool, R is integrated already in Tableau itself. So no need for any dependency. Straightforward. We can write a Java code or SQL code or something like that. We can use the API standard. Many APIs are available in the R itself. We can use the API and we can implement the code. Very simple.
Right.
So that's what the higher level decision.
Yeah, that is good combination.
Yeah.
And there's one more thing is emerging is Spark. Have you heard about Spark?
Spark. Yeah, I know that something about that. I'm not really good at that. I know the terminology and those things.
Okay. That is also emerging now. That is also in a sense that you don't have to have full knowledge about. Maybe you can That's also emerging tool. That's also has a machine learning algorithm. If you're talking about k-means, logistic regression, or classification things, it has algorithms now. It can be extended, and everything works on top of MapReduce paradigm.
Oh, okay, okay.
That is pretty much coherent to the Hadoop. Whereas if you look at R is not coherent, though there are sophisticated integrations. But two different worlds. Again, case to case, the choice might vary.
Okay, okay, sure. So no problem, Madhu. Thank you. Really appreciated for your time and your things.
Yeah.
I'll let you know tomorrow morning. Okay. Based on Okay.
Yeah.
I'll inform provider. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.